So we're on week 3 of the Waltons, of bookending the Waltons. So we started with Spencer's Mountain, which was the 60s era movie based on the book Spencer's Mountain, which is what the Waltons is based on. And it was weird and didn't really work. And then last week we watched the actual Waltons, which was good and obviously is a classic. So then to bookend this, if anyone wants to hear those, that's our previous 2 episodes for actual Waltons content, where this one is just when I realized this existed, I just felt like we should, just for the sake of bookending. It's sort of the perfect symmetry if we had that weird Peter Fonda movie. Now we'll get the modern day movie where the CW network made, it's the same thing as the Waltons pilot from the 70s, The Homecoming, where they're hoping that their dad will get home from his job at the mill for Christmas safe. As far as I know, this is that again. They've remade it, but now it's 2021. And all I know about it is they're hoping it'll revive the Waltons, but I don't think anyone is talking about this. And the CW has quite a bad reputation for just being a schmaltzy teen silly network, with like really lame shows. The Waltons doesn't seem to fit with it, but who knows. And I just watched a little trailer, and it just kind of has that, just how everything nowadays, like film quality and stuff, has gone way up. Like everything looks good, but it looks good in a very generic way, in a very boring way. So my expectations are low. I kind of assume this is going to be similar to Spencer's Mountain in that it's probably not going to be any good.
And is the time frame, like the Waltons, the original Homecoming, the time frame of that is, I don't know, 1932, 1933, something like that, middle of the Depression? Is it?
I believe so, yeah. Because that was the weirdest thing about Spencer's Mountain, is it came out in the 60s, and they set it in the 60s, which removed... It wasn't in Virginia, it wasn't during the Depression. It was like, why? As we talked about last week and the week before, super, super weird to do that. Just such a misfire. So I'm pretty sure this one is at least the proper Waltons setting.
Okay.
But
Well, we'll see. They'll be hard-pressed to get a cast of that many children who were... all of those children that were in the Waltons, they all fit.
Right.
They were wonderful choices. And they all interacted really well with each other, so I guess we'll...
It's one thing, though, this is very shallow of me to say, but it was kind of funny how last week, we watched the first and last episodes of the Waltons, so you get to see that time jump ahead, and just that you can never quite tell how a child actor is going to grow up. There was the one kid in the middle, like the middle son of the Waltons, where I'm like, they would never hire that guy now. He just doesn't look like an actor. He just looks like a normal, sort of goofy-looking guy. They only hired him because he didn't look like that when he was a kid. The classic example is like the kid from The Sixth Sense. Can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Oh, Haley...
Yeah, Haley Joel Osment,
yes.
Yeah. Just because when he grew up, his head is just a weird shape, that he has a very large head and a very small face. So,
But as a little boy, he was just a sweet-looking little thing.
Right. Or it's less a thing, but also Don Draper's daughter in Mad Men. She's, normal-looking person. She's not, there's nothing wrong with her, but she has, like, a really big jaw. And it's just one of those cases where you're like, yeah, you're an actor probably because you got in when you didn't have the world's largest jaw when you were just a kid. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, that's kind of neat about this whole little thing of us just watching old shows and stuff, like the Waltons is a perfect example of what's... we're just doing this for the fuck of it. It's just, hey, we'll hang out on the weekend and watch an old TV show and, just to see the history of TV. It's really the only point. But it's nice to sometimes stumble into something that's interesting. In the Waltons in particular, I was saying last week how my idea of the Waltons was way off. I didn't even really know what it was. Where it's just neat to clear this stuff up, because I was just at the thrift store the other day and I saw the Waltons season 2 on DVD, and it was real cheap because nobody wants DVDs anymore. So not only did I see it and go, oh, the Waltons, and season 2, I also know that's when the original John Boy was on the show, and that's when the show was still good. I wouldn't have known any of that stuff 3 weugks ago. My eye wouldn't even have stopped.
You would have walked right by.
Yeah, like I literally wouldn't even have noticed. Like,
or you might have said, the Waltons, ugh.
Well, I didn't even know enough to say that, because I didn't know anything. I just would have passed it right over and just not even... So yeah, That's handy. Just little stuff like that. Now, if I see the Waltons at a thrift store, I know what it is. All right, so and this is only an hour, 20 minutes. That's not so bad. But also, if this is really bad, the same way we bailed out halfway through Spencer's Mountain, we're not going to make ourselves watch the whole thing if it sucks. But I shouldn't be so down on it. Who knows? Maybe it'll be great.
We shouldn't be so judgmental. It may pull its own weight.
Yeah, you never know.
Hi, I'm Richard Thomas, and I'd like to share a story with you. It's a story about a family, an American family, living through a time of great social upheaval and economic hardship.
Some years later, when I left to go to college, the book which Tommy gave me was one of the possessions I took with me. Now, whenever I open it, I remember those four people who gave a 17-year-old boy his first glimpse of the outside world.
John boy?
What is it?
You think they'll ever come back?
I don't know, Elizabeth.
Wish I could see that lady walk along the rope again.
One day, maybe.
Hope so. Good night, John boy.
Good night, Elizabeth.
So yeah, especially, man, watching the CW version and then watching a real episode of the Waltons back to back, like, wow, night and day, right?
Yeah, no comparison.
Like, I don't even know where to start with that CW one. It was everything that I was concerned about, it was, but worse. It was terrible. Like, as much as we didn't like Spencer's Mountain, I think Spencer's Mountain missed the point, but if you just pretend it's not the Waltons and it's some other thing, it wasn't great, but it was
just a movie.
It was something, yeah. Where this CW version of the Waltons, holy fuck! Like, you nailed it when you said it's like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, it was so saccharine. Everything was so clean.
Yeah.
As I said, if the narration wasn't in there, you'd have no idea that this was in the Depression. It would just be like a family that was being raised on a farm.
And it made me think of online. There's like the Wikipedia encyclopedia, but then there's the Simple English version that is like supposed to be for very young kids. And that's how that CW Waltons felt to me. It's like if you're like showing this to a 5-year-old and you got to make sure they understand John Boy wants to be a writer, the magic of family. I don't even know, whatever stupid themes it was trying to put forth in this corny way, it just smacks you in the face with them over and over. And yeah, all the dialogue was stilted, all the characters were awkward, and like with the Hallmark thing, also visually, it has that perfect lighting, everyone's clothes are immaculate, everyone's pretty.
The home is immaculate, the cars are all clean, they show a road scene, and they don't even have a little buildup of snow on the sides of the road, which obviously you'd have.
Yeah, and man, it killed me because it'd be one thing if it only happened once, but it happened like 4 times. There was like they used to do, they called it rear projection filming, where they would have, if you watch old movies and stuff, like when people are in a car and then they just project on a screen outside the window the outside world going by. And it looks a little fake, but it looks pretty good. Then they got green screens and blue screens and they started doing that. And that was good in the 90s it looks weird now. Nowadays, it's all just digital. Like, I know how to do that. Like you make a mask and then you replace the element of the video or whatever. I literally can do a better job of making trees go by outside a window than they did in that. It looked like shit. And I was just like, this is on TV. And they just didn't give a fuck. Like, I could do, in an afternoon, I could do better than that. So, I mean, that doesn't bode well for that production in general. Clearly, it just, no one knew what the Waltons really was. Clearly. Like it was what I said, like, I thought the Waltons was. Like Goody Two-Shoes show. That's what the CW version was.
Whereas the actual show is not. There's a lot of family interaction and a family conflict. I mean, they're not beating each other up and that kind of stuff, but there's feelings and emotions that come out, and somebody makes a snarky remark and somebody else retorts, and the mother clearly shows that she's not just religious, but when her children do something like John Boy reading that dirty book, well, or not, it wasn't a dirty book, but it was making reference to some girl.
Yeah, it was literally just an article about the World's Fair, but it mentioned nudity.
And she is insulted, and she addresses that.
Or
the
then
grandmother, the same thing. They address that.
somebody lights a cigarette in the house later in the episode, and yeah, like they don't say
They're
it.
too polite
but-
to say anything, but the look is just frigid. And see, that's what makes that show so successful. Is it doesn't have to tell you everything. Like, I'm offended, put out that cigarette. They don't have to do that. They just have to give you the look.
And like I've noticed with all the Walton stuff we've watched so far, like it always wraps up well at the end. You know, like at the very end, goodness prevails and everything works out okay. But only at the very end. Up until then, it's actually pretty touch and go, and like it's a more realistic feeling situation. Where not only in the CW one was everything very easy the whole time, but everyone is saying it. They're literally saying, like, you know, the togetherness of our spirit will keep us going in these tough times. And it's like, you just said that out loud 8 times. Like, it's just really boneheaded. That was really, really bad.
There's no suggestion or innuendo, which there is in a lot of life. Like, oftentimes people will be too polite to say something, so they don't say it. But their actions or their facial expressions tell you exactly what they're feeling. The Waltons TV show does that many, many times. And the children are excellent at doing it. For just child actors, yeah, they can do it too. They just give you that look, like, you creep, or
And even
I hate you, but without saying it. They
and
don't
like,
have to.
And that part where they, you know, John Boy was reading the article about the, it was like some kind of, you know, modern dance performance at the Chicago World Fair that involved a lady with like fans and whatever. And just literally that they said the word nudity set off the mom. But then the dad and the granddad start making just very little small jokes, but about like, oh yeah, I saw a performance like that once. And the grandma's like, but
Man, you man.
yeah, and just so natural. Where the CW one was completely unnatural, fully unnatural the whole time. I honestly think it might be the worst thing we've ever watched on our little journey through this podcast.
I don't, maybe not the worst, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe why I would say the worst is because you know, we've watched some really old stuff that was awkward because it was old, and you know they were figuring out literally how to make TV shows still. And stuff like that, where this Waltons thing came out last year. They just don't have any excuse.
Yeah, exactly. And the acting actually in it is very much like some of that early television show stuff that we watched that is almost stage-like. And in the early days, you can appreciate that because a lot of those actors were stage actors.
Right.
And you have to emote differently when you're on the stage because you're trying to reach those people in the back row way back there. This acting in that new Walton show was very similar to that. It was like, oh, I've got my lines to say, and now I'm going to say them. But there was no naturalness of speech back and forth, which the Waltons TV show is very successful in doing.
Yeah, because that's why I'd say like this new Waltons, like I certainly don't think new TV is better than old TV. I mean, I feel like TV, the ratio is about the same no matter what era you go to. You know, it's 5% good, 95% bad, and it's still that way now. But I feel like now at least the bar should be higher because we have 100 years of experience making these things. So when they go wrong, they shouldn't go as wrong as they used to.
Well,
and that went fully wrong.
If not higher, it should at least be on an even keel.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Like that original Homecoming show that we watched was so superior to that version of it.
So yeah, I mean, again, I feel like this was just the weird bookend. If anybody does stumble across our little Walton excursion, they'll probably more likely find our review of the real Waltons, and maybe someone will be interested in Spencer's Mountain. I don't know who's even going to listen to this. Probably nobody. So we may as well not belabor it. You know, it's terrible. If you had any inkling that you might want to watch the CW Waltons from 2021, don't. It's fucking bad. And I guess that's really all there is to say. Yeah, so anyway, though, through this whole Odyssey, I'm glad that now I know that the real Walton show from the 70s, now I know what it is, and I know that it's good, and so it was worth it. It was worth it.
And doing a comparison, if anybody was going to watch the original Homecoming show from 1971, I think that was. No comparison at all in my books. The 71 is very, very well done. but his follow-up, thumbs down.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I only vaguely know, like when I think of that network, the CW network, I just think of weird, corny teen shows that are kind of fun but stupid. I don't know why they made the Waltons. I don't know, and I can't find out because again, there's no information. Whatever I looked up was only people pointing out the anachronisms, which is funny. Like, hey, that coin came out in 1945, and that saying is from 1950. This is all wrong. But that's all you can find about this is that the IMDb rating is 5 out of 10, which is generous. It should be more like a 3, but and just a list of anachronisms. So I think that's funny too. That the only effort viewers are even putting into this is just to point out the mistakes because there's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else to dissect. It's so anyway, if that gets turned into a full-time Walton series, I'll eat my hat. It's not going to happen. So I don't know. Join us again in 10 years from now whenever they make another Waltons. We'll watch that, I guess, and it'll be bad too. But at least we still got the original.
Yeah.
The original Waltons is a classic.
It is, certainly.